A single vial of blood. That's all she promised to change medicine forever. She didn't. December 2015. A Walgreens in Arizona. A customer walks up to a machine the size of a microwave, they call it Edison. Into it goes a drop of blood smaller than what you donate for a routine checkup. 30 minutes later, results, dozens of tests, one machine, one drop, revolutionary, except it wasn't. Let's rewind. 2003, Stanford University. A 19-year-old named Elizabeth Holmes drops out of her sophomore year. She's got an idea. Her uncle died of hepatitis C. She's convinced she can build a machine that runs blood tests cheaper, faster, and with less blood than anything on the market. She calls it Theranos, diagnosis plus therapy. Catchy, not true, but catchy. Here's where it gets interesting. Holmes wasn't a scientist. No PhD, no research background. She had ambition and something else, a gift for talking. She raised $4 million in 2004 from venture capitalists who'd never heard of her. By 2010, Theranos was valued at $100 million. By 2013, $9 billion. I don't hate coincidences. I notice them. And I notice when money moves that fast without evidence. The Edison machine didn't work. Not the way she said it did. The company knew this. Internal tests showed it was unreliable. Results came back wrong, sometimes wildly wrong. But Holmes kept selling. She partnered with Safeway, Walgreens, pharmaceutical giants. She showed them prototypes that didn't exist. Ran fake demonstrations. Told investors the military was using Edison on the battlefield in Afghanistan. They weren't. She dressed like Steve Jobs, black turtleneck. The comparison wasn't accidental. She cultivated it. Magazine profiles called her the next Steve Jobs. She was on the cover of Forbes, Fortune. She was 30 years old and a billionaire on paper. Everyone wanted to believe her. Belief is cheaper than skepticism. Then a reporter started asking questions. John Carreyrou at the Wall Street Journal. 2015. He dug. He found former employees who were terrified and talking. They'd seen the Edison fail. They'd seen Holmes reject data that didn't fit the narrative. They'd been told not to tell anyone. One person's paranoia is another person's due diligence. October 2015. Carreyrou publishes. The story spreads like a blood infection. Walgreens terminates the partnership. Theranos voids 2 years of results, potentially affecting hundreds of thousands of patients. The SEC launches an investigation. The company is now worthless. The valuation didn't vanish. It was never real. Elizabeth Holmes went to trial in 2021. Jury deliberated for 3 months. They convicted her on 4 counts of fraud, conspiracy, wire fraud, money laundering. In January 2022, she was sentenced to 11 years in prison. She appealed. The conviction stood. She reported to federal prison in 2023. Still appeals. But here's what keeps me up at night. She wasn't alone. Her president, Sonny Dillon, was convicted too. Her former chief financial officer pled guilty, her lab director, her legal counsel. The company was a machine for deception with multiple moving parts, and it ran for over a decade. The victims weren't just investors who lost billions. It was patients. Real people who got incorrect test results, who made medical decisions based on lies, who thought they were sick when they weren't, or worse, didn't know they were sick because Edison said they were fine. That's not a business failure. That's a crime. And it took years to prosecute. So what's the lesson? It's not that startups are bad. It's not that disruption is wrong. It's that when someone tells you they've solved an impossible problem in half the time for a tenth the cost, and they won't show you the science, ask why. When the narrative is flawless but the evidence is hidden, that's not innovation. That's a con. Theranos raised $734 million. The company burned through it. Investors lost nearly everything. The machine never worked. The blood tests were run on third-party machines from other manufacturers. The whole company was a shell game with a turtleneck and a smile, and it almost worked. What gets me is the audacity. Holmes didn't stumble into fraud, she engineered it. She knew the Edison didn't work. She knew the tests were unreliable, and she kept going. She kept raising money, she kept making promises, she kept lying. For years, that takes a different kind of mind. The venture capital ecosystem enabled this. Investors chasing the next unicorn, afraid to miss out, not asking hard enough questions. Media cheerleading without investigating. Regulators asleep at the switch. It was a perfect storm of greed, hype, and negligence. Holmes lit the match, but the whole system handed her the gasoline. Theranos is dead, but the playbook lives on. Every few years, a new startup promises to disrupt an industry with technology that's just barely explained, with a founder who's photogenic and articulate, with a narrative so clean it squeaks. And venture capitalists line up. Because they are afraid of missing the next big thing, they miss the red flags instead. Elizabeth Holmes is in federal prison in Texas. She's appealing her conviction. She maintains she's innocent. She's written letters to the judge. She's become a cautionary tale, a $9 billion lie compressed into a courtroom drama. But for the patients who got wrong test results, it wasn't a story. It was their life. The Edison machine still exists. Some units are in storage. Some were destroyed. They're monuments to a con, expensive, useless monuments. Nobody uses them. Nobody ever will, because they never worked. And everyone finally knows it. This is the dark side of innovation, not the failures honest. It's the fraud dressed up as disruption, the lie that sounds like vision, the con that almost became history. Theranos didn't fail because the idea was bad. It failed because the person running it chose to lie instead of admit the truth. And the system let her. If you want to understand how billion-dollar frauds actually happen, the psychology, the systems, the failures of oversight, subscribe. We cover the cases nobody else does.